Hello, welcome to Platchet Overwatch, episode 114. I just choked on my water that I was drinking, and so I can barely speak for this intro. We've got Custer along with us today, filling in. We've got Matt and Jonathan are off partying on the East Coast or something. Yeah. Jonathan's living the bougie life.
Private jet story on Instagram somewhere.
I know. Was that only for us so that he didn't expose himself as being too bougie to the others?
I sound incredibly bitter. When
I haven't heard about that. I haven't seen that. That sounds like he's been hiding his wealth.
Yes, I think he has. You know how we really mocked him for buying a picture of a duck like a couple of episodes ago? Probably blew up, probably made millions off it, didn't he?
And now he's retired.
Yep, now he's just retired. He's gone with Zoe to play Halo instead of Overwatch.
Did people take that seriously in the end? Yep. I saw like Zoe was like freaking out that everyone's just like taking it seriously that she's not going to be in Overwatch anymore.
Yeah, she tweeted like goodbye Overwatch. And then apparently a bunch of people thought she was quitting Overwatch forever to work on Halo.
Yeah, just because she enjoyed playing Halo. Guess I'm going pro in Halo now. Bye, Overwatch. Like she'd ever been a pro Overwatch player. You might not be able to tell, but something we'll be referencing throughout this episode is Custer's attempt at doing No Shave November. We're going for...
Attempt. Okay. Well, that was savage. Yeah, come on. You gotta let me defend myself a little. Okay, here we go. Well, there we go. All right, here we go. I think, honestly, this is better than I thought it was going to be. This is about 5 weeks worth of growth. I'm doing it for November.
5 weeks.
Yeah,
that's better than you thought it was going to be.
There are 5 weeks in November.
I had low hopes for this mustache. But yeah.
Are you doing it? You're doing it for your raising money as well for Movember.
Yeah, Movember is a cause. I don't think it's as common in the US, but in Australia, it's a pretty common charity where people grow out their mustaches. And it raises money for testicular and prostate cancer, so essentially like a lot of men's issues. But it's also started doing mental health awareness for men as well. Yeah. So I'm raising money for that charity. Any like revenue that I got from my Twitch this month is going to that cause. So
dope.
So don't judge him by the state of the mustache. Judge him by the effort that he's put into it, right? It's not his fault he's genetically impaired growing something on his top lip.
We went to a really nice restaurant in LA last night, and I feel so weird every time I'm like at a place in LA and you just take off the mask and everyone's like, there's that double take of the look and they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, hey, yeah, hello, how you doing? Yeah, this is me. I'm not 14. I swear I'm over 21.
I mock, but I can't grow anything either. I can't grow a mustache.
I can kind of grow something.
Yeah, I've seen yours though, and it's a bit too light. It just kind of looks like a beaver nestled down upon your top lip.
What's this look like?
Yeah, I know. Avast, do you grow facial hair? Is it possible? Are you a man?
There's like, I tried to grow it out in 2019, and I look like a homeless person. So I get
you gotta groom it.
Well, the problem is that like, so I get like good, it's like decent coverage, but it doesn't come in thick enough on the cheeks. And like, also back then now it's better, but it didn't used to connect in certain places.
Right. Yeah.
So I just
That's what mine's
looked,
like.
I just looked raggedy.
Yeah.
I looked like a gross, raggedy person. So
that's what I appreciate about Scott, actually. You know, he's kept it very clean. It's just a single line, a little pencil mustache or whatever you call that.
You look dapper. You look like one of those, like, there's this guy named Errol Flynn. He was an old movie star, and he has the
You're the second person to call it, or like the third person to say I look like this person. Who is this person?
Look at Errol Flynn, and that's the same mustache.
Are you saying Errol or Aaron? What name are you saying?
Errol. It's spelled Errol. It's spelled like ERROL.
We have the same haircut as well, almost, actually. Yeah, honestly.
I can kind of see it.
It's somewhat similar.
Yeah.
And I bet he paid people millions to maintain that level of growth that you're getting just naturally.
Just in 5 weeks, you could do it yourself as well, Sacha.
What's that cartoon show where they would race? They would race.
That's not narrowed it down.
The wacky races.
Oh, wacky races, yeah.
And there was the villain in was he wearing a purple coat and he's got the mustache?
Oh,
that also reminds me of Scott.
Yeah.
No, but his is like it's twirled upwards.
Yeah, he's like the classic twirly mustache villain, though. I don't think you don't have quite enough to twirl there, Scott, to be honest.
Another 5 weeks, I'll twirl it. There you go.
Scott, just before we move on, though, if people are interested in donating to Movember, that is significantly better than what Scott's sporting.
Not quite.
That guy's got a chin on him like I've never seen on a human as well. That chin points at you when you look at him. That is spectacular. If people want to support your mustache growing though, and they want to donate to Movember, where can they go?
You can come to my Twitch if you want to go through me. I've been doing all subs, bits, donations, anything, whatever you prefer. Or you can just go to Movember.com. They're an awesome organization. They've been doing a lot of great things for many years. So go over there and donate to their cause.
All right, very good. The big news of this week, though, that we're going to get into straight off the bat, send things to Serious Town immediately, is the Wall Street Journal report about Bobby Kotick and what he knew in regard to the internal investigations, or rather the investigations in general, within the organization. I'm giggling because Kurt's just brought up the fact that it's actually Custer's birthday, but now seems like the worst time to bring it up.
Oh, the worst time.
As I've just mentioned. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. No, okay. So let's talk about this because the investigations have been ongoing, I think, since like July, August time at the moment, and so this is a significantly. It's a developing situation. More and more information has been coming out about it. There are now Activision Blizzard documents that are available for journalists to look into. And so the Wall Street Journal has been one of the organizations on the front of trying to dig into this and see what people know. And this is the article that they posted. Actually, this is the most recent article that they posted about it, where Bobby Kotick was talking after all of this came out on the 16th, saying that he stopped short of saying he would step down, but said he left the possibility open of him leaving the company if misconduct issues across the company weren't fixed with speed. So to dial this all back, this is a something that happened on the 16th, where the Wall Street Journal reported that Bobby Kotick was way more in the know about these the misconduct going on, the sexual harassment, the sexual assault stuff, the discrimination in terms of pay discrimination, all of that stuff that was going on at Activision Blizzard. He was way more in the know about it than he had led on. He had said that he was unaware of many of these things. And actually, he was aware. He's been brought up on stuff like that before in his own professional past. And he's deliberately covered up or, in one instance, advocated for someone remaining at the company despite HR saying they should be fired because of sexual harassment allegations towards them. So a mixture of lying about knowing about it and deliberately covering it up when things did rear their head. But the board of directors fully backs him.
I mean, absolutely absurd, really. Yeah. I mean, not absurd in terms of... I remember you did your hour-long video, Josh, where you were talking about... And
I've already talked about this for 50 minutes, so I'm going to leave the floor to other people.
One of the big things that you hated was the apathy that people show towards this news and in general. Sure. I think I can understand why people would lean towards it. It takes a lot of energy constantly following it as well, and especially when it feels like nothing's going to be moving. But yeah, I mean, it's so inherently disappointing that from the very tippity top of Activision Blizzard all the way down, this culture is pervasive and it's there right from the very top. And how do you even begin to change the culture from that place without just essentially reinstating the guy? It needs to be taken out of the company.
Well, one of the people that we were hoping might influence some level of change within the company was the fact that Blizzard appointed 2 new co-heads. They, instead of having one person at the top or whatever, they had Mike Ibarra, who was promoted internally, I think, and Jen O'Neill, who previously worked with, I think they're called like Vicarious Visions or something. It was like a smaller development team that she was heading and got promoted into that position. So you got 2 new co-heads of Blizzard. That was one of the changes that they'd made to say, look, we are trying to change this. Jen took, according to this article, Jen took 1 month at the company and then wrote a letter to Activision's legal team saying something along the lines of, there is no way that this company is going to change its culture. I have no faith that the correct measures are going to be taken. It's fucked. And then Jen got paid less for the exact same job.
It's unbelievable.
Wait, really? I did not see this article.
Yep.
You are under direct investigation, the entire company, over gender discrimination, the inequality within the company.
I haven't actually read this article. Kurt's found something different here that I wasn't aware of. This is using information from Mike Ibarra, who was the co-head alongside Jen O'Neill as well. It says, Ibarra now told Blizzard employees that he and O'Neill asked for pay parity together, but O'Neill says she was offered an equal contract only after resigning from the role. So they had obviously existing contracts because they were promoted internally, but you normally renegotiate upon a promotion, right? You don't normally just keep the exact same kind of pay structure and everything. So Ibarra and O'Neill asked for pay parity, and O'Neill only got it after she resigned a month into it, just after realizing that shit was fucked from bottom to top.
That the culture literally cannot be changed because it's so ingrained from the very top. Just horrific. Like in who the fuck is running these companies, man? I mean, it's
Bobby Kotick.
It's Bobby Kotick,
and the board of directors,
who's part of the big, a massive issue in all of this as well. It's just outlandish as well when you're looking at the response that he's given out off the back of all of this and saying, we stand for an inclusive and welcoming environment, blah, 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 going through the usual copy and pasted statement from all of it, and how all of the evidence, at least that the Wall Street Journal has dug up in terms of the article that they wrote, the initial article, points towards him being a large part of the problem in terms of the culture for years and years and years and years.
Yeah, sorry, just to direct Kurt as well. You see that hyperlink just right at the top of the screen right now, the Wall Street Journal investigation? That, I believe, is the original article. So this one that was posted on the 16th. And if you just want to kind of scroll through this, people will get an idea of what Brent's talking about.
Yeah, there needs to be... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. No, I just like, if you haven't read this article, you should read this article, because this is the same as the one that came out a couple of months ago, where it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, if it was just one instance or one situation, you could definitely see some back and forth. But this is just in this article right here, there is multiple instances throughout the history of the year with Bobby Kotick either being involved or complicit or understanding and just not really doing anything about it. And when you say it's like, how do you change it? Like, it needs to start with Bobby Kotick, because he is the core of the company, and he has, like, as much as we've seen a lot of these people move on from their jobs after being sort of like, I guess, slapped on the wrist for doing these like terrible things, Bobby Kotick has been like here since the beginning of time, and like he really seems to stem for a lot of issues. So I think he just needs to go. And I think the statement of, if I don't fix it with speed, like, that's so like vague. It feels like nothing is ever going to change.
Yep. Also, my favorite part with all this too is we missed one extra fun fact is that, in addition, Bobby Kotick literally threatened to have one of his employees killed.
Yeah.
And that was
That's just horrific.
And then when they released their PR, when they released a statement of like, oh, we're keeping Bobby Kotick, when all the new outrage flared up and all this new evidence popped up, in the statement that they released, they literally said, on top of all this stuff, like, oh, we need to fix the culture, but also Bobby Kotick has been generating great returns for us for all these years. And they literally state in a statement about how it's like, no one gives a shit about how much money they're making. Obviously, everyone's pissed, not about the money, because everyone's pissed about the culture you have created at this company.
Yeah.
And you make sure to include still that, hey, we're making a lot of money, though. We're making a lot of money. So, like, it's just cartoonishly villainish.
Yeah. I think, though,
villain.
I think some people don't quite understand, though, how much money Bobby Kotick has made this company. There's, I think Jason Schreier tweeted out an article, I think it was today or yesterday, where he was talking about kind of the lifetime of Activision underneath Bobby Kotick, because he took this company from being, I think they were in bankruptcy when he first kind of...
And he bought him for like a couple million, too.
No, I think it was only like 400,000 or something. It was something insanely small like that. And I believe, again, and this is off the top of my head from something I read this morning, so it might be wrong, but it actually says here, under Mr. Kotick's leadership, the company's market value has risen to about $54 billion from $14 billion a decade ago. That's only 10 years ago, and he's been with the company way longer than that. Share prices, I think, have also gone, I believe I was reading this morning, gone up by 30 times since 2010. So we're talking like, just over a decade as well. The share prices have gone up just astronomically. And that's part of the reason, I think, that the board of directors is so reluctant to let Bobby Kotick go, because when you're faced with that much greed, when you just have buckets of cash flowing in every year, new Call of Duty game, print $1 billion, then people lose their grasp on what is correct, what is ethically, morally, even just in terms of being good for your workers so you don't have horrendous employee turnover. You know, even the more and more channeled down you get towards corporate and away from ethical, there are still good reasons to let Bobby Kotick go, even if all that's in front of you is dollar signs, because the employees are having a horrendous time of working there, and that is going to affect the company in terms of what they can produce.
Turnover of the employees who've literally seen it firsthand.
Yeah,
in a lot of the teams.
I mean, they've already stated that Overwatch 2 is delayed because of all this change in management. It's literally already affecting their bottom line.
They blamed it on a lot of that, I think, but there were tweets coming out from people who are ex-employees saying that it's. I don't know exactly.
Well, I thought that was the leak. I thought it was an ex-employee saying, like, because they put out a PR statement, like the company itself about Overwatch 2 and its delay. And then someone that was working with them came out and said, like, one of the direct reasons why it was delayed is because we've had so much turnover in management.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think they said at like a shareholders meeting. They tried to pin it on the turnover of management as well. Even outside of all of that, like you have this brain drain. You're losing so many good, valuable people at the company because you're just so unwilling to change the culture because of all of this. At what point? It's so disappointing. I really don't know how to put it into words. How just the prioritization of just making copious amounts of money is over human lives and just the ethics of building a good company that people want to work for and people want to go into work every day for. It's so disappointing.
And you've got to think about how Blizzard attracted this level of quality employee in the first place. It was from
advertising that environment.
Yes, by advertising the environment that we are kind of like the glorious beacon of perfection when it comes to game dev. People are like, oh shit, their games are so cool. I want to work for that company. You know, that was like the fantasy was to work for Blizzard if you were a game developer. That fantasy has been shredded. And that's a reputational aspect that you can't build back easily. That's trust not just from the people that are employees. That's trust from the wider kind of upcoming talent. That's going to be very difficult to recover from. Those are issues that are going to affect them further down. Now, this to me, I mean, there are so many things in this article that are horrendous, right? First of all, I mean, right at the top of the article, Bobby Kotick has not been informing the board of directors about multiple like rape allegations that happened in 2016, 2017. He's withholding that information from the board of directors, and there are sources on the board saying that they were blindsided by the allegations by California. This paragraph that Kurt was on right here as well, the one just up from this, is the head of Treyarch, who was accused by a female employee of sexually harassing her in 2017. That's very recently, by the way. A lot of the things in this article are really recent, happened within the last 5 years. And an internal investigation in 2019 recommended that he be fired by the HR department, and other supervisors recommended that Dan Bunting be fired, and Mr. Kotick personally intervened to keep him. And so instead, he was just given counseling and allowed to remain at the company. I mean, you are not doing your job you are not just not doing your job. You are stopping other people from doing their job. You're stopping HR from doing their job.
You're actively going against trying to make a better culture.
It's worse than just being apathetic. It's worse than just being at the top and not caring. You're going backwards.
So blank-faced lies as well, openly saying, we're working towards changing the culture, working to change the culture. And so recently as that, 2019, he's doing things like this.
2019. I mean, that's the first year since COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we all went into a time loop, and 2020 and 2021 barely existed. That was the last year.
Yeah.
And one more thing, like with that thing, it's like Mr. Bunting is like, apparently he stayed at the company until it became public knowledge and journalists started like digging into it. It feels like action only ever happens after they get caught, right? Like they only ask for forgiveness after they get caught. They never really seem to try and fix the problem and the culture. And that seems to be a common theme throughout all of like what Bobby Kotick does. So it's like, there needs to be like action before, consequences.
Yeah. The one of the things as well, this 2016, 2017, two people within Sledgehammer Games had their lawyer get in touch with the company, alleging that there had been rapes and sexual harassment during that time. And nothing happened until the lawyer got in touch. The internal investigation got nothing done. There was no result of it. And then they said, oh, well, the employee never even reported it, which Perhaps there's a shred of a chance that would be true, but given how Activision has acted in all of these cases, I don't believe it. I'd believe the employee 100 times in a case like that when you judge the track record of the company and how bad they've been in terms of dealing with those things. So
also, it's just so much hypocrisy on the way down too, because like Bobby Kotick himself and had been like from the company down, it's like zero tolerance policy, now with Activision Blizzard about all things related to sexual assault and various misconduct. And we have very recent examples of him continuing to promote that culture. But when it's him, no zero policy, no zero. It's okay.
Doesn't
it's
apply
good.
to him.
There's some tolerance. There's some tolerance when it's Bobby Kotick, but everyone else, no. Everyone else, no, zero tolerance. But
and that's something that they've brought up repeatedly, is the fact that Activision Blizzard now has a zero tolerance policy towards harassment, which only got instated, I think, about a month ago. And it did come right from the top. That was something that Bobby Kotick had done to try and help, whether that's a PR move or just generally. But it does seem like a good thing to implement in a company like this. But yeah, it just doesn't apply to Bobby. And Bobby Kotick, this article is so long, by the way, and it's so thorough and fantastic journalism by WSJ. But you're now getting to the point in the article where it's, over the years, Bobby Kotick has been accused himself by several women of mistreatment, both inside and outside the workplace, going back to 2006. And this is what Connor talked about earlier, saying that he had threatened in a voicemail to have his assistant killed. And
like, imagine a boss. Imagine if like your talent manager, if like Stephanie called you, was like, "I'm going to kill you, Josh. I'm going to murder you. I'm going to send a hitman to kill you." Like that's insane. If your boss says that to you, that's literally insane.
Yeah, it's absurd. And he didn't deny it. I mean, this is an Activision spokesperson saying that Bobby Kotick apologized 16 years ago and deeply regrets the exaggeration and the tone in his voice to this day, and also called it, by the way, completely downplaying it by calling it an obviously hyperbolic and inappropriate email.
Billionaires are living on a different fucking planet.
Yeah.
They're not living in the same world, the same reality.
This one's also incredible.
I'm going to destroy you. That is the line that haunted me. He said that to a flight attendant and her attorneys. I'm going to destroy you. Like someone with that much power, like they have weight behind like that kind of statement compared to like if I said, Josh, I'm going to destroy you, because like it's just crazy to me.
It is. And their defense here as well is that we couldn't have fired this flight attendant in retaliation because she never complained directly to me. She actually complained to Bobby Kotick's co-owner of a private jet that the pilot had sexually harassed her, and he fired her for it. He fired her for complaining about the pilot. So just a track record of every single, perhaps not every single time, that might be a little bit of hyperbole, but many, many, many times in which sexual harassment or sexual assault things came to Bobby Kotick, he dealt with them in a terrible and unhelpful manner. And it just goes on and it goes on and on and on and on. And by the way, the reason that they said the zero tolerance policy doesn't apply to Bobby Kotick is because they didn't have evidence of that voicemail where he said that he would kill his assistant. Jesus. Which, I mean, he just admitted it.
He just admitted that his
spokesperson admitted that he said it.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
And they settled. They literally settled out of court as implying that he definitely did something wrong. Generally, like when you settle for something, you're admitting. Generally, obviously, there's
not legally admitting
complexities. Your complexities in the legal system depending on your situation, right? But when like there's just so many instances, and you get so much just a reoccurring track record of these things, like it's very clearly that he did.
This
and like
shit
regardless,
here,
like it's just
this shit in the article as well is one of the I mean, there's a lot of absurd things. I was going to say one of the most absurd. There's a lot of absurd shit in this article. This here though as well, where Frances Townsend, when she sent out that email, the really just kind of ignorant, just completely ignoring the issue email out to the entirety of the company.
This is why big companies are leaving California.
Yeah,
that was that email.
That email was drafted by Bobby Kotick and written up essentially, and it's fucking ridiculous how literally the company is being criticized as well for just the mistreatment of women in the workplace, and Frances Townsend gets used essentially as the mouthpiece for the fucking CEO to send out his own propaganda draft email, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And all the heat gets attracted to her. And then later, once all of that fucking heat gets sent towards her, he then says, "Oh yeah, that was really short-sighted. Can't believe she put that out. Oh, that was really bad. Yeah. It was him that fucking drafted it." This company needs to be changed from the top to the bottom, man. It is literally the case. And I really, with all of this, just to circle back to the point where the board of directors said we'll stand by Bobby, right?
Yeah.
There was the board of directors that said that. I don't really know how the power dynamic works in companies. I'm ignorant to a lot of the processes, but it's very clear that the one thing they care about is money. And I feel like if you're listening to all of this and you actually want to have any sort of impact, what I've been doing, I just haven't been playing Blizzard games at all. I haven't played an Activision Blizzard game in months. I literally haven't been playing it in months. A fucking Overwatch League commentator. I haven't played an Activision Blizzard game in months and months and months. Profits and revenue seems to be the only fucking thing that these people will listen to. And like actively, I know that the argument against it is that you're hurting the devs, the people who are actually working for this company.
And to be fair, the devs have said that they don't want people
and
to
they don't want you to do it, but I just cannot see any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's inside pressure coming from the company. Obviously, there's the group that's been set up as well that's boycotting and asking for Bobby Kotick to also step down. That's fantastic. But from my perspective, I cannot see a way where change does not happen off the back of them losing profit revenue.
Yeah. One of the things that the workers have done that you're alluding to there is that they've formed I believe it's called a coalition. It's not quite a union, but it's organized work, organized labor to some degree. And they have an internal petition for Bobby Kotick to step down, which the last I saw had like at least 500 people on it. Yeah, it actually had way more than that, but I didn't add it all up, and it said 500 at the time, but there was constantly new people signing on to it. And then there was a petition that they said was the best way for people to help if they were outside of the company. So if you're just a fan or previously a fan.
Listen to them, don't listen to me. But that's just my personal thought process, and what I'm doing, my actions for it is that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of other people have been doing similar stuff too. So this says, as of Sunday, more than 1,700 employees, representing roughly 17% of their workforce, have signed that online petition calling for Bobby Kotick to step down. And also there was shareholders targeting not just Bobby Kotick, but also the people on the board that have been there for over a decade who are directly supporting him. I mean, his business partner that he bought the company with in the first place is one of the people on the board of directors, and then there's other people that have just been there for forever and ever and ever. Bobby Kotick himself has one of the chairs on the board as well, or one of the seats rather on the board. It's it's fucked.
Yeah, just
good stuff.
Straight up,
good stuff
fuck,
all around. Yeah. You love to hear. It's crushing sometimes, I feel, because we've talked about before that it sometimes I'm sure we've all struggled with working on a product that is related to this company umbrella. Now, technically, I don't work on this product. I'm only around it, but it's still, regardless, it's really tough as someone that's a fan of the game and the league to see the current corporate structure and culture and ethos around Activision Blizzard. So I'm very much hoping that there's a lot to be done, a lot of work to be done, but I think realistically, when it comes to something like this, symbolically, there's only one move to make, and you got to cut the head off the snake and just get Bobby Kotick out of there.
Yep.
I mean, that is what CEOs are also paid outrageous amounts of money for, is because at the end of the day, you have responsibility and accountability for what happens inside your company. It doesn't really get diffused too much as it heads on up the path. You're paid that much because you are accountable for what happens inside your company, and that's a huge amount of responsibility. It's a huge amount of responsibility. But if you then aren't accountable for the mistakes that or not even mistakes, if you're not accountable for the actions you've taken over the course of time and what you've done and what you've implemented and the culture that you created, then you're just getting free money. You're just getting sent fucking checks that have no strings attached. Something to mention as well is that PlayStation and Xbox both made statements internally that then got released. I don't think they were intended actually to be public statements, but they were like staff internal emails where they were talking about how badly they viewed the situation at Activision. The PlayStation head, I think his name is Jim Ryan, was talking about it in, he was deeply concerned, etc., but didn't really say what action they would take. The Xbox chief, whose name I can't exactly remember right now, said that they would directly be evaluating what their relationship looks like with Activision, which sounds quite soft, but when you remember this was 2 days after the Wall Street Journal article, that's actually pretty fast to get a statement out there. And it's not like they could... Xbox couldn't make that decision immediately, right? Like in 2 days, Xbox can't decide what the future of their relationship looks like with Activision. So just the fact that they are directly evaluating their relationship and making adjustments based on the shit that's happening inside Activision Blizzard, I think is important. Because this, more so even, Brendan, like individuals.
This is bigger than individuals to an extent. This is where the money actually is going to be hard hitting if there is some sort of tangible change of some of the partnerships between these companies. You're right.
Like, can you imagine if like Xbox for whatever reason was just like, we're not going to release the COD game onto our console? Like that is a big like money hit for like Activision Blizzard and stuff like that. So I think, as Sideshow said, like individuals, obviously you can make your own stands. Like I also haven't been playing Activision Blizzard games outside of Overwatch. But like I think there needs to be big change from like higher people in the company, because I remember you talking about it, Josh, there was like a shareholders thing of like the shareholders want to remove Bobby Kotick, but it was like they had like less than 1% of like the shares. So it's like, well, that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So there needs to be like bigger fundamental change, like from, you know, as you said, the board or like the people that actually like work with that company. Yeah.
And I think it's always difficult as well. Actually, it's more difficult than usual heading into Overwatch 2 as well, because Overwatch 2, the way that the game is going to work next year with Overwatch League is the marketing tool for one of the big releases of Activision Blizzard products coming up. Like, Overwatch League has not been the primary marketing tool for Overwatch before. It's actually been very secondary. Now it's becoming the marketing tool for one of their big releases, which I feel puts us, I'm speaking for us, but puts me, particularly, I've been thinking about it, in a very weird place. Because I don't normally think about myself as being a mouthpiece for Activision Blizzard, despite the fact that I work on their product. Because Overwatch League is secondary. It's like a tangential thing. But if you're directly involved with the biggest marketing campaign for one of their biggest games that's going to be releasing, that puts a difficult ethical slant upon what you should even be getting yourself involved with. Anyway, those are conversations for a different time, though, and hopefully things actually get shifted. Even though it's not a commitment whatsoever to step down, the fact Bobby even was forced to address the idea of stepping down and say, if I can't make these changes happen quickly, I will consider it. Like, that's such weak.
So weak.
Super weak, it's a step in the right direction, right? Sure. Because I was expecting him to just stonewall the whole thing just ignore it and hope the board had his back. He's at least being forced to make these comments that edge him closer and closer towards opening a door, if not stepping through it. So I think this heat is going in the right direction, at least. Anyway, that's a heavy fucking topic to kick off with. So I think I would like Connor to sing Happy Birthday to Custer now.
I also would like Connor to sing Happy Birthday to me.
Can we, Kurt, can you bring up the Spider-Man dancing Happy Birthday video? We can do this for Kurt, for Scott.
This is a big thing from
Spider-Man Happy Birthday.
Okay.
We're all gonna sing to Scott Happy Birthday. I'll wait for Kurt to bring it up, because we need the background here, because otherwise you don't really get the full birthday experience. I feel like if I were to create a cult, this would be it'd be one of the requirements. You have to
Spider-Man
sing
Happy Birthday video.
Spider-Man Happy Birthday every time it was someone's birthday.
Have you ever had a Spider-Man Happy Birthday, Custer?
I have.
No, this is a first as well. Yeah, no, this is who would have thought it would happen at the ripe age of 28? But here we are.
Oh, it's about that.
Yes.
There it is. Okay, here we go, bro. Let's do it. Play it up. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Scott Kennedy. Happy birthday to you.
Now you're gonna let him dance.
Okay. Why are they slowly walking towards?
This is the most cursed thing I've ever seen in my life.
No, now let them converge, and then once they're done converging, this is when the real Pepe Jam begins.
Oh, okay.
Why are they so ripped? Why are they so incredibly muscly?
Very clearly. So at the end of this video, there's a bunch of like, this is clearly made for like someone's birthday party in like somewhere in Asia. So there's a bunch of like small Asian children that this is clearly like a ripped 3D video where someone just made it for their kids. So it's like super like poorly produced.
Actually, we could go into a rabbit hole here if you want.
Do you think it's AI produced?
It's probably okay. It might not be AI produced.
No, this is very clearly made for like some kid's birthday.
Yeah, this is for a kid's birthday. But there are a lot of videos very similar to this where it uses assets and tries to go through like rhythmic nursery rhymes to generate ad revenue to children. It's auto-generated AI videos. I think YouTube has been doing a great job of cutting down on them because there was literally no filtration process, and the AI doesn't know when it should be including what is happening.
Okay, generally I cut it off before the small Asian look like Vietnamese kids. So before the Vietnamese children show up, I generally cut it off. But you know, you got to see the end of it.
Yeah.
What a bizarre! I mean, what a just bizarre little piece of the internet that we brought out for Scott's birthday.
There you go.
Thanks, Connor. I appreciate it, man. That was that was great. Exactly what I wanted.
Oh, fantastic! We also got some gifts. These are not for you. These are.
It's your birthday, but you're not getting.
Yeah, these are things that got sent to us in our PO box, and normally I screen them. This time I didn't. I've not screened them this time, so they
might not even be for this podcast.
I don't know, but they say Platchat. They don't say Platchat Valorant, so I think they should be for us. I'm not exactly sure, and it also doesn't really say where they're from either. Actually, it does. That one is from Long Beach, and this one's from Reno, so they might not have any names on the inside. If you sent us a package from Long Beach or Reno, put a comment down below. This is some of the hard-hitting content you guys have come to expect, where we don't prepare, show up, just open.
I'm a little bit nervous about this one because it's a velvet bag. But what's inside the velvet bag?
This is the one from Long Beach. So this has been sent from No. What do you mean no?
What?
Wait, what is that?
It's a head. No, it's not.
Wait, what? I'm kind of scared to touch that. That looks alive.
That looks... I think I know what that is. Don't take it all out.
Wait. No shot. No way.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me it's
that might be for the other show.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm gonna... Okay. The Valorant show. I think that might have been a co-stream reference, and if anyone gets that, they'll know why we don't want to show what it is.
Don't want to.
However, these let me. I open these up, and these are much better.
I kind of want to wash my hands.
Well, these are much nicer. What we've got here is Rhine reinforced flip flops. Someone's made custom reinforced flip flops, and I don't know how to get them out of the bag.
What?
Oh, it's not even a bag. It's genuinely, these are Rhine Flip and Rhine Flop is what it says on there. And it's Jonathan's face in various different poses.
Are they made in the shoe size of Johnny? They look like it. They're fucking huge.
They're absolutely
I think these are
massive.
for Johnny, but he doesn't even live here.
Well, we'll have to send them back to him. Those are, I mean, that is incredible.
They're massive.
They don't say who they're from. They just say they're from Reno. So if you sent us reinforced flip-flops...
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your gift much more than the other one.
Yeah, that one over there.
Naughty.
That is, I want to wash my hands.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, actually.
You know, surely no one did before. I would imagine.
You say that. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. Anyway, well, that was interesting. But now it's time to tell you who our partner for this episode is, actually, because this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. No, not welcome to member. It's brought to you by... I did. Kurt's pressing all the welcome to member buttons. He's desperate for us to call out our members. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. As you can tell by Custer's delightful male grooming on the top of his lip, if you want similar levels of male grooming elsewhere on your body, then you can head to manscaped.com. They've got some wonderful... doesn't this make you feel cozy?
Wow.
Very Christmassy kind of feel with the nuts and the nut
I got
crackers
a TikTok
everywhere.
ad. Not like an ad, but it was like, it felt like one, even though it wasn't one. There's somebody talking about how they always used to get razor burn until they got like, they didn't actually call it a Manscaped razor, but they showed a Manscaped razor.
Oh well, that's what it was.
And they said it was a good, it was a good product to buy.
I mean, they are good products. I've tried them out as well, and I use them, but they are very good.
Your head? Got
No,
the
I don't use them on my head. I don't use them on my head. But let me read this as well, because Manscaped always sends us just the absolute premium ad reads here. Ho, 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 gentlemen. The holidays came early here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products, including their all-new ultra-premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself, or someone who needs it, the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday
2-in-1.
season. Yep. Jingle balls to the walls, fellas. Untrimmed pubes are a thing of the past, and it's possible that you have Santa's beard in your pants. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I actually wanted to be more specific this time as well, because this is also coming close to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So if you go to the manscaped.com store, you'll always be able to get 20% off with our code, which is PlatChat. But if you're getting a gift or anything between the days of the 22nd of November and the 29th, so the week that's like right now, if you're watching this episode as it releases, you'll be able to get 25% off everything that's in the store, and then you'll be able to use our code on top of that. So now is absolutely the best time if you're interested in getting this at all. And I will say they do make excellent gifts. So if you're looking to buy this as a gift to someone that is not going to be horribly awkward, getting them ball grooming products, but if you're looking to get this for somebody and it wouldn't be that awkward, then now is absolutely the best time in this week, because you'll get like 25% off plus then our
if you're in a relationship,
free
it could be taken as a subtle hint as well.
It could be, but I wouldn't take it as a hint. I think most of the time people are not as precise as they could be when it comes to grooming themselves.
Sure.
How do you know? You're just assuming that people aren't good at grooming their balls, or
he actually does a survey for every dude.
A survey? Okay.
Yeah, we do a survey. Yeah. We ask people to post in the comments kind of the length that they're working with. Anywhere from Santa's beard to Custer's upper lip, and most of the time, people are at least a little more towards like Reinforced's neck beard kind of length.
Yeah.
So
beard.
You want to make sure that you're out there. Anyway, get your 20% off and free shipping with code PlatChat at manscaped.com. That does it for the read. We can move on to what we were doing this weekend, which was the Esports Awards, and we were there, sat down.
Yeah,
listening to everybody else win their awards, and a familiar face popped up, winning the Coach of the Year.
Moon.
And it was Moon of the Shanghai Dragons. What do you guys think about that?
I have thoughts.
Please share.
Okay, Brent. What do you have? Let's hear.
Felt like it could have probably gone to a different coach. I don't mean this in a bad way. I think that Moon's impact clearly was quite good, but I think with the award show, I imagine just the overarching storyline that people probably liked was the whole Shanghai Dragons Norton 42 going on to win, which is a cool storyline. It's a very cool storyline, but they're not the same team. It's the same franchise. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Moon came in at a later point with completely different players and ended up taking it out one step further. Definitely deserved to be nominated, but the trouble with the Esports Awards is, as well, in general, I feel like it's so hard to distill down a singular individual who really excelled and outperformed all the other nominees. I feel like it's, at a certain point, it does become a bit of a popularity contest, you know what I mean?
Which Overwatch does not usually win. Which
makes this one quite nice. So maybe people are going to be thinking, well, that's kind of mean, Bren. Why'd you say Moon doesn't deserve to win it? But looking at the other nominees as well, they had, off the top of my head, there was the Gambit coach, I think, as well. Although he hadn't won anything quite large, I think their dominance showcased was pretty impressive. And a big part of that was just, again, the tactics. But that's the trouble with the Esports Awards, is we're all kind of ignorant of the other scene, so we don't really know who truly deserves it. But from my perspective as well, Moon has always been a coach in my head that he's been like the leadership figure as opposed to the guy calling tactical things inside the team. Yeah, it was always my takeaway from him as an individual. But it's nice that Overwatch wins something, you know. So
I agree with Bren that it's hard to categorize how good a coach was, especially when you're going between titles. So you can't doubt that Moon was incredibly dominant. Shanghai Dragons had a ridiculous season. No one was even really that close to him throughout the entire season. So you got to give him credit where credit is due. And congratulations to Moon. As I said, good to have Overwatch representation because I don't think Overwatch won anything else. Like anyone from our scene. So
no, I don't think so. Yeah, it's
most bitched about game. They could have won that award.
Most bitched about game.
Yeah, I feel like everyone.
Good job, guys.
I feel like the general trend, everyone shows up at the esports awards, and like as someone that was there, and like I think I was there 2019. I just remember it was like you show a lot of industry figures. Everyone's great to hang out with, but everyone's like, man, let's bitch about Overwatch.
Yeah, I think that's why Mitch posted something afterwards. He posted like this cryptic tweet that was like, well, it helps to be working on something that people don't love to hate. Which I think was talking about him working on Overwatch League. People do enjoy ripping on it.
Yeah.
Moon has now got to a position though, as we kind of think about the entirety of Overwatch 1. He is one of the most winning coaches that we have in the scene. Sure. Was he with the Valiant during that stage 4 win that you had in 2018, Custer? I think he was, right?
I think he joined around the same time I did. Valiant. I don't think he was there. He wasn't there for the whole season. He was joined when I did. But yeah, he was there for stage 4.
I thought he joined mid-season, and then you guys turned the season around a bit. And then
but I like to say that was coach. Me. But you know, but yeah, no, he's been successful. What he's done with the Shanghai Dragons as well. Like I really struggle talking about coaches because it's impossible to see the impact. Like as much as I've worked with Moon, I have no idea what he's doing on the Shanghai Dragons. Like I literally have no understanding of how much influence he's having. Is he the one scouting these players? Because I think scouting is one of the big things that I think they've done really well in acquiring the best players. Like that Lip sort of came out of nowhere, and he was, in my opinion, close to one of the MVPs of this year, and they've just been so dominant throughout that time. So, but yeah, like, is he a tactician? Is he the person like talking about the comps, talking about the strats, or is he just being that leadership figure? When I was on the Valiant, he was mainly leadership, but now that he's in more of a Korean-speaking role, maybe he's sort of shifted that.
Yeah, it could well be true. But the guy's just won a lot of stuff. I mean, if we're trying to talk about things from the perspective of the actual evidence of winning titles and stuff like that.
Oh, he's got that.
He's got a shit ton of that. He won before he came into the league with some really interesting players. Then he won stage 4 with the Valiant. He's won so much stuff with the Shanghai Dragons as well since the kind of beginning of their run in 2020. So yeah, he's been fantastically successful, and that tends to, I mean, there's a pattern there at the very least. So it's
even if we don't know internally, that's what I mean.
It is frustrating though that we don't have more clarity on stuff like that. I really do wish that teams posted more of that kind of stuff.
I feel like following other scenes, it feels like in the Overwatch League we actually do a better job than most other scenes at trying to find out how much impact coaches have.
Yeah.
Compared to other games, because some games they don't even talk about the coaches at all.
Yeah, you just see them some games basically don't even have
coaches. Yeah.
I was going to actually say that, Brent. I'm glad you brought it up. We don't talk about. Think about the other currently culturally relevant games and like how much coaching is really like. I mean, League is like the biggest fucking game in the world, and.
Well, I don't follow League that much, so I don't know.
Oh, the coaches are a big thing, especially because they're also for the draft with League of Legends is a big thing, and that's usually coach driven.
Yeah, I guess that's fair because I guess I haven't got as much exposure in many ways, but I feel like I still don't hear it as much. But that's probably just because I'm not in League nearly as much. Yeah. I guess a greater example then is as someone that we're more tuned into Valorant. Like we talk about
Valorant, but also it's the new game, but also it comes from that culture where they're just like, there's some. One of the most winning teams of all time in Valorant just doesn't even have a coach.
Yeah, well, they do now.
They do now, yeah.
But now their coach is hypothesized to be essentially just a player coach addition to them, more so than a head coach, right? So
that's what I mean. So out of all the things I said, I'll walk back from my initial statement saying like, oh, I don't think Moon should have won, because in reality, it's hard to. You can't argue with the results that he's getting. I mean, literally, it's just the number one all down his Wikipedia.
It kind of is.
You can't argue with that.
Let's talk about some more Overwatch League news then, because Florida Mayhem, even though it had been rumored previously, now it's been confirmed by the organization. They've signed someone. Listen, don't start this shit. They signed someone.
Yeah, who?
Already, we're bringing out the jokes, huh?
Yeah.
Bringing out little jokesters.
Just
hearing Kurt booming.
Kurt shouting boo from the other room.
I do mean it though when I say.
Who?
No, I'm not going to say it.
No, he was rumored in the past to be like joining Dallas or something, wasn't he? He's certainly been in the conversation about joining the Overwatch League before.
Scott, you're in the Florida gulag right now. Have you heard anything? Any whispers in the courtyard?
Well, I've heard
Sorry, I
interesting
meant Connor.
things.
I was literally looking at Connor when I said it. And I said Scott for some reason. Scott, you can take it. You're not exactly in the Florida gulag, but you can take it away.
No, Connor, you go first. You're in the gulag. Let's let the gulag speak first.
I was literally looking at a vast, and I said Scott.
It's just you're confusing your Australians that are going
that's true.
that are going to Florida. So I do think I think it was someone that was rumored to go to Fuel earlier, but he's been around the contender scene for Korea for a while. I mean, he played for Jinji. He played, I can't remember what his like old team before that was, but like it wasn't really. But he played for Jinji. Now he played for Team CC most recently. He's been pretty consistently good, I'd say. Like he's not like rated as highly as some of the other like very, very hyped up main tank prospects, but I would say he was like hovering around like the top 3 or 4 tank players in Contenders Korea, you know, that was coming out of that region in terms of like how overall solid they were looking. So I think it's continuing tradition of players that I think that are overall solid, but have maybe like not like that have not been the most hyped necessarily. I think for Florida in terms of how they're building that roster.
Yeah. What's the current roster? Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, sorry. Connor. I just wanted to jump in. I was just going to talk about, like, I did talk to Goomba, like, when he got the job, you know, I sent him a words of congratulations because I really like Goomba. I think he's a great coach. Yeah. I think he's perfect for the Florida Mayhem, like Moneyball style. Like it doesn't feel like they're working with a ton of money and going to be able to compete with the greatest teams, but he's just sort of putting a hodgepodge of like great players from all these different regions. And I think someone sort of fits into that. He's not the best, you know, main tank prospect coming out of Korea, but I think he should be able to like sort of add something there. And that's the same thing can be said for anything, but they now have like people from all different parts of the world coming together. My biggest concern right now isn't about the talent of these players, because individually I think their grade is going to be, are they going to be able to bring it together as an entire unit? Because we've seen teams like this succeed before, but we've also seen them fail. What's
the full roster looking like at the moment?
We got Checkmate, who was on the Florida Mayhem recently, Mira, Adam, Surmajed, who is the flex support from Saudi Arabia, Hydron, North American Contenders player, who's American, and now someone who is also Korean.
And they can't have finished their roster because they only have 1 support at the moment, right? So they have 2 tanks, they have someone on Adam, and then they have 3 DPS, I believe, and 1 support currently.
Yeah.
So it's
from that current roster, the majority of them can speak English, though. It's just the Korean players that I don't know how proficient their English is currently. So
interesting, though. It's an interesting roster.
Reminds me of the Valiant.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of ways.
It's the Gumba.
It's Gumba,
yeah. Gumba
really does enjoy getting diamonds in the rough and trying to polish them up. I think that's kind of his thing. Yeah, I always think about his his approach of being more like a Moneyball approach. He is very data and stats driven as well. I remember him kind of talking a little bit about it in previous interviews and stuff that we've done. But
he is actually like that. What's it from It's Always Sunny, where he has like the board and he has like arrows and lines going everywhere, and he's like, that's 100% Goomba. I've seen him come out of like a 48-hour coding session and be like, I've cracked the code, as he like looks at his stat sheet, and I'm like, okay, man, sweet.
One of the other pieces of news this week coming out, there it is.
Exactly. I need someone to Photoshop Goomba's face on top of it. Thank you very much.
One of the other pieces of news coming out of the Mayhem this week was, unfortunately, Swingchip leaving. Swingchip's been one of the pillars in kind of getting the social media and the personalities of the Korean players, especially, to be showcased throughout the years in which the Florida Mayhem has had those players on board. Excellent translator and live interview translation, as well as just...
Yeah, Swingchip has been invaluable.
She really has.
It's valuable in the Overwatch League scene.
I love her tweets on like road trips. It was like Florida Mayhem road trips, and she would tweet out little bits from the behind the scenes conversations. She's one of the people that when we're talking about getting a behind the scenes look and unveiling personalities, she's one of the people that does it the best, where it's not really too like scripted or anything. It's just her conveying to the English speaking audience what's happening within a Korean speaking team. It's just essentially providing that bridge between the two so that you can understand and see the personalities of those players. Rather than having anything to be forced. But yeah, Swing Chips, unfortunately, disappearing. She said she loved her time on the Mayhem, but I think it was because of like she's been
going back to Korea.
Her grandmother,
going back to Korea.
Her grandmother is sick, so she wants to be close to family. Mostly
Makes sense.
Is the big thing. Because she was weighing up a couple of her options in the off season, but then she decided, she would rather, stay close to family. So
yeah,
which makes sense. You can't.
Does.
And then she did tease a new move there at the bottom of the tweet, but it's overall. I think we actually had a final dinner with her this past Friday night. It was myself, and we had a nice final dinner with her. Luckily we got to get some nice omakase style sushi, which I'd never had before. Where it's like the chef, you sit at a little bar, and the chef is the one that like gives you the menu, which was really nice. I never had that. It was a very fancy place that had just opened up here, so I was kind of lit. Thank you, company, for that one. She was excited, I think, to go, but also a little sad because she had never actually lived as an adult in Korea. She's been over here for a long time.
She said she's been here for 9 years. 9 years away from family is that's wild. That's way more than I'd have been able to do, I think.
And I think she was pretty invaluable overall to the organization, and like because a lot of the handling of like the brand for Mayhem last year was through her lens, because she was so adept at translation and being able to put that stuff out there. So it's something overall that I hope when we go to mixed rosters or even the full Korean rosters that currently exist still, and that are at least ones that are in like English speaking markets, I would hope that we can get more emphasis on that Korean player insight, because there's lots of personality there. It's just, I think on the past, it requires a little bit more investment from like Western orgs to bring it out, which is why I don't think we've gotten as much insight into it as we should have.
Yeah, I think both Swing Chip and like the other person who really comes to mind is like Avala. In a way, they do such a good job of like bridging that gap from the Korean speaking players and like their personalities and bringing them over to the Western audience as well. And I think it is unfortunate that we don't see the same thing happen from English to Korean, but I think that adds so much to the league because there are so many players and there are so many teams that like I feel like we are just so disjointed from because of like language barriers. And I think Swing Chip did a phenomenal job with that with Florida Mayhem, because if Swing Chip wasn't there, I don't think we would have known much about those players and the personalities, and the crazy personalities some of them have. Like Yaki is just nuts.
Yeah, it's like you can hire somebody to do the translations, but to find somebody who understands the culture, and you can tell because Swing Chip's passion just bleeds through the interactions with the players, and when that's coming across online as well, you really just can't hire someone like that every now, like just off of LinkedIn, it's like it's so invaluable. It's so invaluable. I really do wish her the best. It seems like she was teasing that she's going to the Seoul Dynasty, possibly in some capacity. There was a little tiger and the
was there?
There was a tiger at the bottom with the emoji and then the black and gold hearts.
So the colors I missed that completely. I missed that.
So there's a little tease at the bottom there, but just really, hopefully, always wishing for the best for Swing Chip. Yeah.
Speaking a little bit about Avala and Paris, we had a move this week with them as well, as Vestola returns, re-signed to the Paris Eternal to join them. What do you think about this move? Vestola was previously signed to Paris as well, and then explored free market. He actually impressed me this year.
Vestola was good, I thought.
But the problem is, the tank role is so different moving forwards. I don't even know how people are even assessing it. I know that Paris specifically were assessing it by trying to build a workshop mode where Orisa had a dash mechanic and other stuff. But that's... Vestola's back to the Paris Eternal. What do you think?
I think it's a good signing. I was surprised they dropped him originally. I thought he was kind of the same as Dredro, where like they came in mid-season and I think they exceeded all expectations. And I think they were really solid. And if they're sticking with the mindset that they want to stay like primarily European. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it in a way. I think it's going to be harder to find off tanks that are going to be able to fill that role, especially when you have like Poco going to London and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see Vastola come back and sort of like have a full season with the team and not just sort of be thrown into the fire. But Paris is an interesting one because they did quite well in the end. And with the addition of Glister, it's like, I don't really know what their power level is going to be heading into this season because, as you said, the tank role is just, we don't even know what it looks like. Are we playing off tanks? Are we playing main tanks? Maybe Vastola doesn't even play if it just becomes such a heavy like main tank situation.
Yeah. I don't want to get too down in the dumps about it as well, because the more I think about it, the more I lose motivation to follow the off season. Is when I wonder about like how the hell the team's gonna work, because we don't even know what Overwatch 2 is gonna look like. But surface level thoughts, Vastola I think really impressed me just based on my expectations when they came in, and I think that the one thing that was glaringly obvious when it comes to Vastola is just the passion and drive to improve and compete at the highest level, which is the most important thing when you're entering a new game environment, because that is the thing that's going to carry you forwards. That willingness to keep up with the changes, keep up with the adaptations, to want to be the best. That's what you need. Yeah, I mean, Vastola, I think, proved that in their tenure at the Overwatch League. And moving forward to Paris, I think a very, very good addition once more.
Okay.
Good player.
Yeah. Well, talking from one off tank that was pretty impressive this year to another, Leityoung has retired from Overwatch gameplay alongside Yakpung as well. Leityoung particularly impressed me last year because I wasn't expecting pretty much anything from him. And instead, he gave us some really good performances on roles and heroes he wasn't known for later into the season, once Elsa had taken the backseat, or in fact left the team. I think Elsa left the team.
Elsa retired mid-season, yeah.
Yeah, retired. Yeah. So now both of the Chengdu off-tanks have retired, but I wanted to add this one in here because I did feel like Leityoung deserved a specific send-off, because while I kind of felt like his career had petered out basically as he joined the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
He was big before the Overwatch League. It was on the best Chinese team that got screwed over, weren't able to enter the Overwatch League. And then by the time he was actually able to join, he was like a Zarya player and a non-Zarya meta and never really looked that great on off-tank. But this year, he really impressed me. It was a weird kind of peak right before retirement, because the stuff that he was able to accomplish this season on D.Va, I think was better than what he'd been able to put up his entire career up until then.
Yeah. Especially because the competition gets a lot harder, and coming into it, it's very rare for a player to come, obviously when they've already had that peak and they've dropped off, and the kind of stagnation that comes off the back of that, to then come back in and then compete at a very high level. It's rare. Normally people lose what it is. I don't know what it is as a pro player. I mean, passion. Scott, you lost it ages ago.
Yeah, it's passion. Yeah, no, I yeeted out of there as soon as I lost that.
But I don't know whatever it is, but that willingness to keep up is sometimes when it just goes, and it's hard to even gain that back at any instance. But they perform to a very high level.
I think the same thing can be said for Elsa as well. Like I remember going into this season, like we were talking about Chengdu, and like they filled out a lot of their roster, and we were really excited. But we're all like, the off tanks, Elsa, Leityoung, neither of them have really done anything in their careers. Like they've always been just average off tanks. But I think, funnily enough, Elsa in the front half of the season really impressed me. He was really good, and then he retired. I'm like, oh no, now they have to go to Leityoung, who also hasn't impressed me, and he also just had a great end of his season. Obviously, it fizzled out in the playoffs, but I think Leityoung had a great time. It's a good time to retire when you're sort of on the up, because like I sort of had a similar thing where it's like when I got benched in season 2, or like when you start questioning whether or not you love this game, you have that drive and that passion like you were talking about, Bren. As soon as you lose that, it's hard to stay at that level. And I think that's sort of probably why Leityoung is getting here, even though he was on the up. If he doesn't think he's going to be able to hit that peak that he really wants to get to, I respect the decision to retire.
Yeah, it's a good time to do it too. I mean, in between games, went out on a relatively good note. Like, it is very hard to, and especially if Leityoung didn't necessarily have opportunities going in, right? Like, if you're not guaranteed a spot in Overwatch League next year, then you have to have an incredible amount of work ethic to grind yourself back up. With the current ecosystem in general and just going into a new game. So I think if you don't have that drive to where you're willing to sit in front of your PC 12 hours a day and grind ranked, grind scrims, look at VODs, like you're just not going to be able to keep up, and you're not going to be as good unless you're just a genetic freak. And even the genetic freaks, like you can still like go into downswings if you're not putting in the effort.
Yeah.
So it just probably a good time for him, but he did have a really good year. I was a fan of Elsa, so I was really disappointed, honestly, because I thought Elsa was a pretty solid off tank
I think
previous year.
Late Young. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to add a little bit of additional. I think it was Late Young who said that Elsa did help him a lot in terms of learning the other off tank roles and getting up to a very high level in that year, despite Elsa retiring. Like a big part of that. I think there was a post earlier on. Yeah. Just wanted to add that.
Elsa was a good player. So I was a little worried when Late Young first came in to place Elsa, because I was like, ooh, I don't know. Like, and Late Young had a really good, and honestly, very solid year. So I think it's nice to end on a high note. And knowing Overwatch how retirements work, Late Young could just be back. I mean, so
yeah. What about Yakpung as well? So Yakpung's also retired. He's a player that's kind of been in and out of the Overwatch League. Was in originally as part of the Toronto Defiant roster that got picked up. Has been spending a lot of time in contenders too. This is an update from his Discord where he was saying, here to deliver some bad news. He's decided to retire after a lot of consideration and etc. etc. Probably kind of, Connor, what you're talking about, the idea of if you don't make it into the Overwatch League already, then it's a huge amount of grinding to try and get back through contenders. And Yakpung's done his fair share of grinding through contenders across various different years. Is that your read into this as well? That he's kind of like, damn, didn't quite make it, and that's probably where the motivation starts to dwindle.
I also think his stock is low too, comparatively to Late Young. I think his stock is very. I think he was a player that never quite was able to live up to the expectations that he had when he was originally on O2, which eventually became O2 Blast. It was like O2 Ardent or whatever back in the day. But like, and then before he went to Defiant and then went to New York, he went back to O2 after he went to Defiant. Like, he was a very, very hyped up, not like supremely hyped up, but like people thought like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good main tank player. And he just never, I think, showed it in the Overwatch League. I think he always was like kind of meh. And then he had like a final chance with New York, and it did not go well either. In fact, I would say that's the lowest his stock has ever gotten is after this past year in New York. And there's probably just, you would have to have a ridiculous mental fortitude to, I think, have to grind your way back up. So probably a good time.
Unfortunate casualty, I think, as well with the move to 5v5 is that normally there would be positions, I think, on some teams. But if you are a tank player and, like you said, your stock is low, the teams that are going to be going potentially like a bit of a budget route where they might be, giving you a shot and you can be on that team, well, there's less opportunities. There's one less tank role going to be on the active roster, which means that overall there's going to be less tanks in the league. And it's just part of that process. I imagine Yakpung probably tried to like entertain the idea, I imagine, but he said that, he's announcing it quite late. But yeah, I mean, all the best of whatever Late Young and Yakpung end up wanting to do in the future.
Yep, absolutely. I want to talk about the Hangzhou Spark next, actually. So the Hangzhou Spark have completed, or at least they posted a tweet saying, this is our 2022 roster. So I'm assuming it's completed. I suppose they could still make more moves as we head closer to the season, because we're still quite a long way out, actually, to have completed your roster entirely. But let's take a look at it, because we talked last week about the coaching additions that they had made, and now they've also added some other positions. So they've fleshed out their support line with Super Rich and Irony, and they've got extra DPS players with Pineapple and Alpha Yi as well. So this is now looking like a big roster, and that's something that the Spark have kind of failed to manage in the past, those big rosters, and how the coaches will manage that is, again, going to be a focal point for next year. What do you think about the actual talent that they've acquired here, if we're talking about the new players? Scott, I want to start with you. What's your thoughts on the Spark's actual roster on paper right now?
I like all the big additions that they've made. They've obviously picked up a lot of players from Bilibili Gaming, and then you have Super Rich coming in from Team CC as well. So like they are getting good talent. They're sticking with the mix of Chinese and Korean players. But I was really worried Hangzhou Spark was just going to be like, yeah, we're just going to run with Architect again and just like hope that he really finds that San Francisco Shock form, or like that they weren't going to like hard flip over their support line. But I think these are great additions and like good to have like rookie players in while also keeping some of the old guard in the roster. So I haven't watched a ton of a lot of these newer players, so I can't really speak to that. But I like the changes that they make and the roles that they're filling out, right? They got 4 DPS players now. They only have the 2 supports because they dropped all of their other 4 supports that they had last season. So I like that they aren't just like leaning on the back of just like, let's just hope Shy kills everyone again. They're like giving him like extra backups for someone who needs to play in that role. And then obviously, you know, you got Gushwei. Hopefully we get to see Liege this year. Like that hopefully should be a great tank lineup as well.
I think it's nice that they picked up Alpha Yi specifically. Sorry, Brent, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, it's all good.
Go ahead.
I don't have that much to say, to be honest. I just find it a little bit risky to be leaning on 2 supports. And when I don't really know, I felt like they didn't have too many issues in previous years when they've been trying to mix together the 2 different languages in the roster when you've got the Mandarin speaking and Korean speaking players. But definitely still when you're getting new players in, you have to keep them up to date with the system that you've got already going on. And there could be issues that arise. And I think having a case where you're going to have different nationalities working together no matter what, because you've got the 2 supports in the roster, could come up with certain issues. I don't really know. I mean, this is just me trying to predict looking at it. But it seems like they're putting all of their eggs in a DPS basket in terms of like, I think this is a smart move if you're going to have an Overwatch 2 team. Like, it looks like the balance of the game is heavily biased towards the DPS players. Like, DPS in general is being buffed with just a singular tank on the battlefield as well. It means that DPS can do way more. You're going to have a lot more agency as a DPS player. So get a big DPS roster, a lineup, fill it out. You have a lot of positions that can fill up whatever might be meta with any of the new heroes, if we even do see them in the Overwatch 2 Overwatch League next year. I don't know if the new heroes are going to be introduced. But even still, it looks like they're putting all of their stock into that. But I worry because that is the one glaring weakness for me, is not having as fully of a fleshed out support lineup. You're only going to be starting 1 main tank at a time. You've got 3 tanks on this roster and only 2 supports.
Yeah, it's because also they've essentially blocked themselves into a corner too, in that they cannot choose to run a primarily Chinese or Korean roster now because of how they split up the roles. They're essentially going to be split down the middle all the time now. In terms of how their roles have worked out.
And when you look at the actual roster that they have, it's likely only about 2, maybe 3 of those players are going to be former Spark players. And most of the players are going to be new players when you look at kind of an average or predicted starting roster. So if they did have a really effective system internally for communicating, you are going to have to build that up again. You've still got to start in a good position because you already know all the mistakes and failures of trying to implement the systems before, and you can kind of get people up to speed a lot quicker. But it's not like they have pre-existing synergy or communication systems that are going to help them this year. It's new coaches, it's new players, and you've still got this communication
feels very ground up
to get over.
Yeah, because we bring up, at least I do, it feels like every off-season, whenever this is the case where a team is starting to work out mixed languages when we're speaking and settling on one and trying to make it work, always feels like it could be a huge question mark and a big obstacle in actually seeing success in a roster every time. And a lot of the times where I thought that might be the case, I've been proven wrong, but they are starting essentially from ground zero again with it, even though you are learning from the mistakes of last time. Like you said, Josh, new players, new coaches, does add some extra complexity to it all.
And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that's probably one of the reasons Spark has struggled as an organization in the past. Yeah. And it's not because communication hurdles are impossible to overcome, but it's an extra thing to add in that other teams are not, some of them, not having to deal with. And because of the Spark having Korean and Chinese player mixes, we've heard from them in the past that it gets this 3-way blend of communicating in English and Mandarin and Korean based on what the most efficient way of communicating that idea is. And so it's not as simple as saying we have a full Korean team or we have a European team where most people have learned how to speak English just by being on the internet or you got taught it growing up. And it's not the same as having a mixed roster like the Shock, where a lot of the Korean speakers have learnt some level of English or are incredibly dedicated and fantastically talented and end up learning English to a much higher degree. It's much less easy to find a perfect solution, or even a solution where it's not very complicated and difficult. So
yeah. I want to like talk about it as well, is because like all these players, as you said, they communicate, I believe, in game, and like primarily when they're in game, from what we've heard, in English, especially when you have like a much bigger mix between Chinese and Korean than we've ever seen in the past as well. When the Spark were the most successful in 2019 while having that mix, the only non-Korean player was Gushue. And I think in game, that's fine that you have that language barrier, but the value that they had outside of that is that communication, when you're talking about VOD reviews, when you're talking about strategies, when you're doing all those kind of things, when the conversations get more complex, that's when using English gets harder. And you're going to have this divide of the Chinese players are going to talk to the Chinese players and the Korean players are going to talk to the Korean players. And it's about making sure you bridge that gap as an organization and a coaching staff so that everyone is always on the same page, not just in the game, but outside of the game. So it feels like there is that good back and forth. And I think the Spark haven't managed to do that. And I would be very curious to like talk to their coaching or their organization, be like, do you think this language barrier has been a big hurdle for you? And is that the reason you haven't been as successful in 2020 and 2021? And is that going to be a problem in 2022?
The pure talent this roster has, though, is really good, though. Overall, like the new pickups, most of them came from Bilibili or Team CC for Super Rich. And Super Rich, probably one of the few remaining like of those like legendary Chinese main support players, contenders that hadn't been picked up. Very good player. So I'm excited that he's getting a shot. Irony, Alpha E, and Pineapple were all Bilibili. They've had really great performances. In particular, I think Alpha E coming in to supplement Architect if Architect is still not looking like peak performance, or even to give him the option to run double flex support. Or not double flex, but
that's
double
what
flex
I was going to... Oh, see, I was thinking maybe double flex support as well, actually. I know that's a bit out there, but Architect has actually played... But Architect has actually played some level of flex support in the past, right? Like you played Ana and some shit for the Shock.
It's like 2 years ago for the Shock, right? Because of Over Violet, right?
Yeah, but okay, look at this roster on paper, and one of the biggest names that they've got, I mean, they've only got 2 names in the support line, but Super Rich is what a lot of people from the outside will be putting stock into because he's a great player. He's fantastic. But he also primarily plays Lucio and Mercy. And that's
which
something
might be moving into Overwatch 2. It sounds like main supports are not getting that much impact.
Maybe drifting out of the meta. We don't know that for a fact, but if they do drift out of the meta a little bit, that puts a lot of pressure on Super Rich to learn different stuff, or maybe for somebody at the DPS line to fill in. Am I off the goop, or does that?
Anything's possible. Anything is possible moving into Overwatch 2. Yeah. Genuinely, like you see some. We've already seen some crazy shit. It's not like last year, players swapping roles all over the bloody shop.
Checkmate.
Like, Checkmate as an example. I mean, it's
worked great.
Normally, though, if players are role swapping, it signifies struggles within a team.
Yes.
Normally, but there have been moves where players have done it, and it's been part of like a big overall picture, and it has worked out.
I agree with Brent though. Like they with how big their roster is, with having 3 tanks, just sign a second flex support. Even if you're like it's just some like not great player, just someone that you're like, hey, you're probably not going to get a lot of gameplay, but if we do go to double flex support, you're going to need to be ready. Like I think that could be valuable for a play. If you have a 10-man roster, you may as well make it 11 and shore up any holes that could happen. Because I really don't want to see Architect on flex support again because it never works in the long term.
Yeah,
I think this roster is better than last year's roster though.
I agree.
Overall, I think this is a much like when I look at their incoming contenders talent, I think this is a better roster overall than last year's. In particular, I think Irony is very solid. I think Super Rich is a much better main support player. I like both, like Pineapple. I mean, you have Shy and Pineapple, which are kind of overlapping a bit, but I mean, still Pineapple plays Tracer. While I mean, like there is some extra addition there when Shy's mostly been like a hard hit scan at times. So I do think that this roster currently is more promising than last year's Spark roster, especially if they get Ligue to play.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's an unreasonable take. The conversation about Super Rich and the main support kind of role within Overwatch 2. We had a rumor, a wishful thinking. I don't know what exactly this was, a leak. I don't know. But one of the prominent Overwatch streamers, Eevee, was talking and tweeting about a Mercy res potentially getting changed or removed, altered in a significant degree in Overwatch 2. I don't know where this information came from, to be honest. I don't know whether the content creators have access to something or whether somebody told them that their idea was getting used. I don't know. But the idea being here, and I just wanted to put it to you lot as well to see what you thought of the idea as just a potential change. Let's assume that this was true. How do you feel about it? So Resurrect completely removed for Mercy, and instead it's replaced by Angelic Blessing, which is a 20-second cooldown, and you can essentially gift someone else the Guardian Angel ability. So you can gift somebody, one of your teammates, the ability to use the flight on the interact key, and you can, they can use it to completely reposition. So you could think about it like as a Reinhardt. You could get in super deep and then get given...
You could just fly back.
Angelic Blessing and super jump back out of the fight.
Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
No, you go first. I want to hear what you say first.
I've always disliked res as a mechanic in the game because I think the concept of undoing a pick, a kill, has just been, I think it's just bad, honestly, for the game, especially because it's so easy to do. For the longest time when it was introduced as an ability, it used to be ridiculous. You used to have 2 charges of it when it was changed into an ability away from the ult. And it was instantaneous. Like, that was one of the worst timelines that we've been on, and it was at the start of the Overwatch League in 2018. But the concept of undoing a pick like that, I don't really like. I prefer this because it means that you can... I could see some cool instances where this is used, where somebody just ints their brains out, and it does give you the opportunity to undo some bad positioning, but it's still punishable. You know what I mean? Like, you can take a bit more risk with your positioning in an instance. You can gift your whatever it's called, send a soul, Angelic Blessing, and
Devious Lick.
Yeah, they can the devious lick. They can end up just gliding back to the safety of your team. I don't know how strong this will be, because res is still insanely powerful as an ability, and how do you offset that? How do you provide value with the rest of... There's lots of ways you can provide value to Mercy's kit to kind of offset losing that as an ability. It seems cool, though. It's a cool little instance of an ability.
Seems very difficult to balance. Because you are gifting mobility to other characters that are balanced around not having mobility. That's my biggest issue.
I agree.
It has to be used in one instance, right?
Has to be used within 6 seconds according to this definition.
Yeah.
But then it's like, how close do you have to be to give them the Angelic Blessing? Can you give it to them after they've dove? And because that becomes really strong, because that means you can still play back and provide that value. Or do you need to give it to them? Maybe if you had to be like leashed to them, like you have to be healing them to be able to give them that blessing, would mean that you have to play more aggressive. That adds more of a risk to it because it only lasts 6 seconds. I think this is a great idea. I think we actually talked about it. If we could maybe it wasn't on Plat Chat, but I talked about this before. It's kind of like Thresh Lantern. If we're just going to talk about League of Legends, it's essentially Thresh Lantern, where it allows someone to pull to come to you. And I think that's a perfect idea, and it works so well in tune with what Overwatch is. It's supposed to be fast. There's supposed to be mobility, and this gives like a cool little interaction. I agree that Mercy just isn't... Res has just never been a fun mechanic. When it was mass res, when it was the double moth res, as you said, like, it's just, even right now, it's just used as the Mercy just leashes to like an Ashe and then just reses them on cooldown. That's usually how Mercy res is used. And it's not fun when you're the other hit scan playing against that, and they just get res every time you get a pick. So I would love to see them move away from Mercy res. Obviously, it's a big part of her like lore, so it's kind of hard to move away from, but I think it'd be a really good thing. And this is a great concept.
I think balance-wise is really the crux, like you talked about. Because I look at, like, if it goes away after 6 seconds, that already means that you can't just hold on to it forever, which is nice. Like, you can't just, like, pre-plan it. Well, I mean, you sort of can, but, like, it depends on, like, how fast you can give it to that person. Like, because that's the big thing for me. If it's instantaneous, like a Brig Pack or something, that's fucking strong, because then you can just get away whenever within 6 seconds. You can do it right before the dive, and the cooldown's long enough to where you can't spam it many times during a fight. You can like sort of like play cooldown, just jump and just, okay, they use this, let's go for the dive, like we can go for them now. So the mechanics of how it works, if this is a real thing, obviously, which we are speculating,
from
the rumor, it's fun to speculate.
It's fun. So I think it would be really cool though, because also I think the key issue with a lot of character design, especially with like tanks, because Mission, you could do this to tanks too, theoretically. Like a key issue with a lot of character design in Overwatch, and what I was also worried about in going into Overwatch 2 is mobility and the lack of mobility for certain characters. So having things to mitigate that, especially when I think looking forward, like Mercy could potentially have a sort of resurgence in the meta a bit potentially, because of the fact that since it's going to be more DPS centric, you want to have more personalized pocket potentially and have damage boost, which a Mercy can provide. And there's less tanks to isolate and find a Mercy. Also less tanks to peel for the Mercy too. But when you have a very fast-paced game, a Mercy that's able to move around a lot could potentially be strong.
Can I interest you guys in some theory crafting? Okay.
I actually have a theory as well, so you go first. I want to see what yours is.
Mine is called the diving Reinhardt theory. And I'm thinking Numbani point A, right? You're on attack, and normally Reinhardt pathing always has to go up that staircase, and you have the fight on the high ground if you're trying to take high ground. Otherwise, you're like trying to speed boost a point and just hope they fall on you and you kill them or something like that. But you want to fight over high ground. In Overwatch 2, you can do that by gifting the angelic blessing to your Rein, and then you have like, you're playing Rein with a Genji or something, Rein with an Echo, whatever, something with a lot of mobility, one of the DPS. And as the DPS goes in, the Mercy gifts it to the Rein, and the Rein floats up there, swinging his hammer around as well. And suddenly, you've got your tank approaching from a completely different angle. And whereas that composition would previously be defined by the fact that you can't ever take high ground with it, or at least it's very difficult and requires huge amounts of pathing, you've now bypassed that with Mercy. You've given them like a Winston leap. They don't have one to be able to disengage with because it's 20 seconds, but it's like a hard engage comp where you immediately get to close range swinging distance with the Reinhammer. And you're just going full on into their face.
A cool idea. But let me one-up you. No, sorry. Go ahead, Scott. You had your idea.
I just want to talk. I just wanted to say, like, but the thing that is running through my head is my Reinhardt yelling at me, like, pull me, pull me, pull me. And I'm like in the front line, like, take it, please help me. That's what I'm thinking about as the Mercy. So, sorry, you go, Brent.
If I got the keys to the Overwatch 2 car with balance, we would not be looking at the same game. It would be a completely different game. We would be looking at the next great. It would be known as a cultural icon from balance alone. I think that they should make it so that if you give the blessing to a DPS, they should be able to glide to the enemy team.
Oh, so it's like Guardian Angel, but they can attach to enemies.
Yeah.
And so that you could just follow and hunt down an enemy as they're running away.
You could literally glide to an enemy.
That sounds atrocious.
Yeah. It would be really bad. But I think, here's the thing. We're theorizing one rumor change within a system that we don't know.
What character would be best?
Animation is going to look like. Just imagine like you have like a roadhog like fly. Like how does that even look like animation wise? Like what? Like they give them little angel wings maybe, and like they go like how does it look?
That'd be so good. You sprout tiny little angel wings. So it's this big
that
fat
would be really fucking funny,
big man with tiny angel wings.
The thing that I first came to my head, and this is what I thought you were going to talk about, Josh, is I was more thinking about the chaotic nature of giving someone something where they have to fly to you. So I'm thinking as Mercy, as I'm hovering off the edge, I'm like, oh, I've thrown you the thing, jump back to me. And I'm just hovering off the edge. And like then you just pull them with you, and then you can just fuck with people. Or like in team fights, all of a sudden you're like accidentally flying people into their death and stuff like that.
Well, I didn't read it as a pull though. I read it as you gift them the ability to use their interact key as a Guardian Angel.
I thought they would go to. I took it as they had to go to the Mercy. Is that not true?
No,
this is described as, and remember that we're discussing something that is just kind of being written up by this person anyway, so you might be more accurate than they are. I don't know. But Evie said the person you gift it to can then use one flight to a teammate. So it's essentially just you've given them the ability Guardian Angel for 6 seconds.
I feel like, I don't know. That's weird.
That's incredibly powerful.
Wouldn't it be?
That's a lot stronger,
I think it's actually better the way that you've described it, Scott, because it's more limited. But there's so much trolling potential with pull.
Yeah.
No, because no. But why don't you just give the agency of the pull to the player who's receiving it? The Mercy throws it out, and then whenever that person next hits the interact key, they get pulled back to the Mercy.
Oh, back to the Mercy.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah,
Right.
like I thought it was a timing
an easier
thing.
way.
Yeah, this is just saying that it's any of their teammates.
It's kind of crazy. You have to learn how to super jump on every character now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
think
have to-
that adds a lot more interesting mechanics eventually with how you can play it, but also could make it kind of busted.
It's fun to go down these thought processes, but
Can you imagine you counter dive their Mercy, right? They go for a dive, and you're like, okay, the Mercy's there, get her, sick 'em, boys, and you fly in and you try and take out their Mercy, and suddenly she pulls back the Rein to her, and she's, get back over here, just yoinks the Reinhardt back, and suddenly you're.
Well, surely it would also. I mean, surely this would also it sounds like it's controlled by that person, not by the Mercy. That would be troll. Troll.
Yeah, that would be very troll.
It's fun to theorize over like this kind of stuff, but there's one thing I've learned over the many years of trying to theorize over one particular balance change in a wider system is that I always get it wrong.
Oh yeah,
I always get it wrong.
There's
always
too
get
many
it wrong.
variables.
There's
especially
so
with
many
the new game.
variables. You literally have to be a genius. You got to be 200
Hyung.
IQ. Yeah, you must be Wizard Hyung if you're going to be able to somehow work out how these. Anyway, whatever.
Especially when it's interaction with other heroes, right? Like all of a sudden you've given Roadhog the ability to fly. Like that's the first interaction that comes to my mind, right? So it's like as soon as you start giving heroes an ability that they put on other people, that's when I think you start going into like the 19,000 possibilities of how it could be broken.
Think of all those comps as well that had the just like they had very mobile comps and then just the Anna sitting at the back alone. Yeah, like you could just suddenly you can Anna, come on, join us. Come to the high ground.
Yeah.
Once every 20 seconds.
All right. Well, that's our little bit of fun for the week, but we are going to end with the most important segment every week. This is going to be incredibly serious. Bren's competing with Esports Awards, giving out his own Player of the Week.
Mine's going to be 5 hours long.
Oh.
And I'm not going to hand out free dinner.
Oh, that's very sad. I enjoyed the raw tomato they served.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My player of the week this week, I was going to give it to Halo for releasing Infinite and having a good time in general. I've been enjoying that game.
To the player Halo.
Just to the game. The game
I thought you were talking about the journalist. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Then you're like, the game. I'm like, that's less sense.
Yeah, the game, and because they had their open tournament, it was pretty fun. I watched it. But I decided to do a 180 in the middle of this episode, and there's only one individual that does deserve it at the moment. It's you, Scott, for being born.
Oh, yes.
So
thank you. I did it myself.
It's your birthday. You got the player of the week. You deserve it. You deserve the world as well. And, I hope you have a very nice birthday. You got anything special planned?
I went out for dinner last night with my friends and stuff like that. But as I said, Sabrina just started a new job and on Monday. So it's kind of hard. I think I have some like family stuff. I think we have a nice dinner, Sabrina tonight.
Lovely.
So
nice.
Very nice.
Lovely.
I've also
As you
been
get older,
over the course of this episode, I've been trying to figure out whether you're wearing a multi-tone shirt or whether you're wearing like a fur throw over one half.
No, it's actually the Liquid match. They had the Naruto collaboration. I've never seen Naruto. My friends just gave this to me, so it's very nice.
I like how you preclude that. You're like, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Dave, before you yell at me, I haven't seen it.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's our show. That's everything, huh?
Yeah.
You can catch us next time for episode 115. The off-season is barely begun. It's barely begun.
And yet, short episodes, huh?
Yep. And yet still pumping out hour-and-a-half episodes full of all sorts of different stuff.
We could get talent shows next. Plat Chat community talent shows. That's going to be like, once we get deeper to the off-season, we're going to be juggling.
Do you know how to juggle?
On unicycle. Yeah.
We can get you on there. You can be the juggling expert. We'll have a panel, and the panel can vote on whether people are good at what they do.
This is a joke, but it has to happen. I mean, it actually has to happen. You just put out a community response for talent show?
Yeah, the Plat Chat Overwatch talent show.
We've got to do that. That's a wonderful idea.
We're going to have lots of slow news
I'm an
weeks.
idea man.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of slow news weeks. This idea could come into fruition.
I mean, maybe next
later.
week.
Yeah, we don't know.
I'm so down for this. All right, well, you can catch us next week for episode 115. We'll see you then. Goodbye. Bye.